Hi, welcome to the Dartarian Show. I'm Alexander Dartarian.
And I'm Dominic Sykes.
And today we're going to do something way different. And it's something I've wanted to do a long, long time. Go into unsolved cases. I love cold cases. I love unsolved crimes. I love trying to figure them out. They're puzzle. But I kind of wanted to do it like urban legends. I wanted to go to each state and then eventually around the world to find the most famous unsolved case. Doesn't have from each state.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to start it off. It's going to be Unsolved, Iowa. So do you know anything of any famous case from Iowa?
No.
No?
No. I almost hear nothing from Iowa in general, usually.
Yeah, except for, like, what do they have, like, corn there?
I don't know.
But they have one of the probably deadliest murders that I've, in recent history, that I've ever heard of. But I'm talking about the Villisca axe murders.
Well, it already sounds like it's going to be getting off to a good start. So
Yeah. Sometime around midnight between Sunday, June 9th and Monday, June 10th, 1912, a person or persons entered 508 East 2nd Street, Villisca, Iowa, and bludgeoned to death 8 people sleeping in the house. The victims, Josiah B. Joe Moore, 43, Sarah Montgomery Moore, 39, Herman Moore, 11, Catherine Moore, 10, Boyd Moore, 7, Paul Moore, 5, Lena Stillinger, 12, and Ina Stillinger, 8.
So, quite a big family.
Yeah, well, the Stillingers were staying over. So.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, but the oldest being 43, the youngest being 5. Bludgeoned to death in the house.
Jesus.
The night before. On Sunday evening, June 9th, 1912, Josiah Moore, his wife Sarah, took their 4 children, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, to a Children's Day service at their Presbyterian church. Accompanying them were Lena and Ina Stillinger, neighbors who had asked permission to stay overnight with the Moore children. Now, Children's Day service was at an end-of-the-year event where they would have a choir and speeches, which Sarah, a co-director, was extremely proud of her children, who took center stage.
So this is like a small town. Everybody knows
Yeah.
each other. Type.
Well, it's 20. The population right now in 1912 is 2,500. It's a railroad town.
Yeah.
The service ended with a social mingling that lasted until 9:30 p.m., and the Moore family and their 2 Stillinger children walked home on that cloudy, damp, and cool night. They walked the 3 blocks to their house and had cookies and milk that ended the festivities, and they all went to bed. The murders. Sometime between 11 and midnight of June 9th, 1912, the killer or killers picked up Joe's axe from the backyard, entered the house, and systematically wiped out the entire Moore family and the 2 Stillinger children.
Jesus.
The killer or killers bludgeoned each person 20 to 30 times with the back end of the axe.
Why?
Well,
I mean, that sounds like a crime of passion. Like, there had to have been some kind of motivation to hit them over and over and over and over again like that.
that's one of the reasons why they think it was multiple people, because one person hitting each person 30 times would be exhausting.
Yeah, but why? Go ahead.
They covered their heads with cloths and covered the mirrors with cloths as well. Josiah was the only victim to receive the blade of the axe. Indentations were found on the walls of the parents' and children's walls upstairs from the upswing of the axe.
Wow.
Other oddities of these murders were there was a 4-pound slab of bacon found next to the axe, which was leaned against the wall in the room where the Stillinger children were staying.
I think that would be like a taunt from the killer to the police, like,
Yeah, I have.
pig,
Yeah, I guess.
like, come get me, pig.
Lena Stillinger's nightgown had been pushed up, and she had been left exposed. Although the doctors had concluded she was not sexually abused, and she did not. But she did have a mark on her arm and a blood stain on her knee, indicating that she defended herself. The only person in the house to do so.
So they got all the other ones while they were
Asleep.
asleep.
Mm. which I don't know how you can bludgeon someone 30 times without
And
waking
not
up the
having somebody
person
else
next
wake
to
up.
them.
Yeah, that is so weird.
Um, so the killer or killers also made themselves something to eat and clean themselves off in a bowl of water that was found on the kitchen table.
That's messed up. Just kill
Yeah.
a whole family and then
So-
the neighbors and decided that they're just going to eat a sandwich over the...
The question is, that's why they believe it's more than one killer, because how can one person go from room to room,
Yeah,
bludgeon someone 30 times,
yeah.
kill them without making any noise to wake up someone
The
else?
rest of them...
This house is not a mansion. It's a relatively small house.
I promise that I would wake up if I heard somebody getting bludgeoned right next to me, or even in the room next door.
I mean, unless he went around and
killed them and then
then went back and did it.
Is that one of the theories? Maybe that he didn't like the cause of death maybe was something else besides the bludgeoning, or the bludgeoning happened after
No,
they
the
died?
bludgeoning killed them. That's what killed them. Yeah.
I don't understand how they didn't wake up then.
Let's get into the aftermath of this, because this is going to be infuriating.
Oh boy.
By 7:30 a.m. on June 10th, Mary Peckham, an elderly neighbor to the west, became concerned that the Moore house seemed quiet and deserted. She called Josiah's brother, Ross, a local druggist, who arrived at about 8 a.m. to look around. His cautious inspection of the downstairs revealed two figures covered with a sheet in the back bedroom, and he saw blood on the bedstead. Ross stepped back and away from the crime scene and called Joe's hardware store, telling employee Ed Shelley to fetch Marshal Henry Hank Horton, because something, quote, terrible had happened, end quote. Hank arrived about 8:30, went through the house, and found, as he told Ross when he came out, quote, somebody murdered in every bed, end quote. Before long, the entire town descended upon the Moore house to see what had happened, and even had walked through the house and handled the murder weapon.
Oh my god. Can you imagine how the parents of the two little girls that were staying over there felt?
Yeah, like the marshal was like here, like handing the axe around like it was like a souvenir. Like they swear,
all of these unsolved cases is just, or at least a good vast majority of them are because of incompetent police work.
The funeral was 50 carriages long and lasted several hours. So what do you think would be the cause?
More background as far as like trying to figure out like who would do it, like if it was somebody close to them, what reason they would have to do it, like the motive for it, or if it was just like some random stranger. It's hard to tell without knowing.
Well, let's get into the suspects.
Yeah,
because there were suspects for this. Let's see. While no one was ever convicted of the Villisca axe murders, there seemed to be no shortage of suspects. In the days following the crimes, you could have read about at least 4 possibilities in any edition of the newspaper. Many of the leads, however, were quickly exhausted, and as time wore on, they began to dwindle. So let's get into the first suspect, William Blackie Mansfield, arrested in 1916. William Mansfield of Blue Island, Illinois, was the prime suspect of the Burns Detective Agency of Kansas City and Detective James Newton Wilkinson. According to the Wilkinson investigation, the murder of Joe Moore and the other occupants of the Moore home were committed by Mansfield, who was in turn hired by F.F. Jones. Mansfield was also known as George Worley or Jack Turnberg. According to Wilkinson, Mansfield was a cocaine fiend and a serial killer. Wilkinson also believed that Mansfield was responsible for the axe murders of his wife, infant child, father-in-law, and mother-in-law in Blue Island, Illinois, on June 5th, 1914, 2 years after the Villisca axe murders.
After that?
Yeah, after him. 2 years after.
So he killed them and then killed his own family?
No, he killed another person's family.
Oh, another one.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking...
Yeah.
My bad.
The axe murders committed in Polia, Kansas, 4 days before the Villisca axe murders, and the murders of Jamie Peterson and Jenny Miller and Aurora, Colorado. So
So
he may have been all of them.
so he could be a serial killer associated with all of those other cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I could get behind that. That could be like his MO.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
maybe.
it's murder of opportunity.
Okay, so
The axe was always theirs.
this is unsolved. So obviously they haven't been able to definitively say it was him up to this point.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's more to it.
So basically, with that, according to the Wilkinson's investigation, all of the murders were committed in precisely the same manner, indicating the same man committed them. Wilkinson stated that he could prove that Mansfield was present in each of these places on the night of the murders. In each murder, the victims were hacked to death with an axe, and the mirrors in the homes were covered.
That does sound similar.
A burning lamp with the chimney off was left at the foot of the bed, and a basin in which the murderer washed was found in the kitchen.
Again.
In each case, the murderer avoided leaving fingerprints by wearing gloves, which Wilkinson believed was strong evidence that the man was Mansfield, who knew his fingerprints were on file at the federal military prison of Leavenworth. Wilkinson managed to convince a grand jury to open an investigation in 1916, and Mansfield was arrested and brought to Montgomery County from Kansas City. Payroll records, however, provided an alibi that which placed Mansfield in Illinois at the time of the Villisca axe murders. He was released due to a lack of evidence and later won a lawsuit he brought against Wilkinson and was awarded $2,225 at the time. So that was a lot of money back then.
Not only did he, if he did kill, not only did he get away with it, but he managed to countersue, or do a suit against him for, I guess, defamation.
Yeah. And then Wilkinson believed that the pressure from Jones resulted not only in Mansfield's release, but also in the subsequent arrest of the trial of Reverend Kelly, which is another suspect of this.
Okay.
And let's see, Reverend George Jacqueline Kelly, arrested 1917. The other prime suspect in the axe murders was Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher. Kelly and his wife settled in Macedonia, Iowa in 1912 after several years of preaching throughout the Midwest. In 1917, Kelly was arrested and charged with the murder of one of the victims in the Villisca axe murders. Kelly was invited to attend the Children's Day exercises at the Presbyterian Church on June 9th of 1912. His presence in Villisca on the night of the murders and his subsequent departure in the early morning hours of June 10th made him a prime suspect in the case.
Yeah, for sure. He was there.
He was there for the Children's Day, but left immediately before the bodies were found. Kelly's supposed confession made a mockery of law enforcement practices at the time and was withdrawn before his trial began.
He confessed?
Yeah, he confessed. His supposed confession. They think it was under duress or torture.
Wow.
Kelly's first trial resulted in a hung jury, and he was finally acquitted by the second. According to the information presented by Kelly and Tammy Runda, Kelly moved to Kansas City, Connecticut, and finally New York City. The remaining years of his life and his final resting place remain a mystery. So not only was he tried once, but tried twice.
Yep, the first time being a hung jury and the second time being acquitted.
It's also speculated that Kelly took a liking to Lena Stillinger, which is why I think that the best suspect in this case is Reverend Kelly.
You like him?
I like him for the murder, and I'll tell you why after I read the last suspect.
Right, yeah.
No, actually, there's a lot more suspects. Sorry. But I'll just read one more. Henry Lee Moore. There existed a strong possibility that a serial killer was actually at work, and Wilkinson's case against Mansfield actually suggested the same. M.W. Moncolia, a federal officer assigned to the Villisca axe murders, actually announced in May of 1913 that he had solved not only the Villisca murders, but 22 others that had been committed in the Midwest around the same time frame. McColdry's theory was that Henry Moore, no relation to Josiah Moore, was the serial killer responsible for all of these crimes. Henry Moore was actually convicted of the murders of his mother and maternal grandmother in Columbia, Missouri, just months after the murders in Villisca.
So that guy would have killed the family and then gone and killed his own family. If he was the killer.
Yeah, if he was the killer. Moore's family murders were killed just as brutally as the victims in Villisca, and his weapon of choice was an axe. Henry Lee Moore was born November 1st, 1874, in Boone County, Missouri. He was the eldest son of Enoch and Georgia Ann Wilson Moore. There was 3 other sons born of the couple. Henry's father was a farmer and served in the Civil War. His mother was a nurse. 2 of Henry's brothers, Tilden and Turner Moore, as well as his father after his father passed away in 1910. So 2 of Henry's brothers were nurses as well, along with his mother, which I didn't know they had male nurses back then. I guess they would be called orderlies.
Probably.
Yeah. Henry's remaining brother, Charles, died in 1960 in Stockton, California. Charles left the area prior to the deaths of his mother and grandmother and did not return for the trial. It was unknown whether he was aware of the situation. So his last brother didn't even know if they had died or not.
Right.
So in 1900, Henry was living with a family in Franklin County, Iowa, and was working as a farmhand. It is suspected that Henry may have fathered a child with a young daughter of the farmer. Henry was sentenced to the Kansas State Reformatory in Hutchinson, Kansas, on a forgery charge and was released April 11th, 1911. The murders in Colorado Springs occurred in September of the same year. Testimony during Henry's trial indicated that he had lived with his mother and grandmother during the winter of 1911 and the summer of 1912. He left to take a job on the railroad. So, during the Villisca investigation, other axe murderers also came to light. Just 9 months before the crime of Villisca, H.C. Wayne, his wife and child, and Mrs. A.J. Burham and her 2 other children were bludgeoned with an axe in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So Henry Moore was sentenced to 36 years of a life sentence. But he was paroled by the governor of Missouri in December 2nd, 1949. So he was 82 years old when he died. He was living with the Salvation Army. And so he is accredited for not only killing his own family, but he killed a family in Missouri. Colorado Springs. Well, that was his family, Colorado Springs.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Ellsworth, Kansas, and also he was also accredited for possibly the Villisca murders. So I don't know if it was a serial killer. I'd Mansfield just because he covered the mirrors and the bodies, and that was a big thing in the case. Also, why I like the Reverend Kelly for 2 reasons. One, because of Lena Sillinger.
Which would give him a motive, I guess.
But the doctors did say there was no sexual harassment or sexual assault. Sorry, and then but the bacon. A lot of people speculate that the 4 pounds of bacon was for grease lubrication for rape, basically. Also,
but I thought she wasn't raped.
She wasn't. But also, why does she only have the defensive marks?
Yeah, why was she the only one that fought back?
Yeah.
He tried to wake her up first?
I think because the axe was found in their room. So I'm assuming, like, if I'm going into a house, I'm going to put myself in the mind of a killer, which is going to be scary. But if I'm going into a house to annihilate a family, I'm taking out the dad, the mom and dad, because they're the biggest threats. Because the second oldest person in that house besides the mom and the dad was Lena, and she was 12. There's not going to be much fight from children. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know.
So he probably started in the parents' room, killed them, then killed everybody upstairs, and then came downstairs for the Stillinger children thing, killed Lena's sister, and then maybe, with miraculously, without waking her up, was going to do something to her, and pushed it up and everything, and she woke up and was fighting him, and he just,
he killed her.
yeah, he killed her. So that's my thing. And like I said, the Reverend Kelly, he was seen at the day's service taking a particular liking to her.
Yeah.
So that's why I think Kelly. But it could be a big coincidence. He could just be like a doting, like some dudes are. It's weird. It's really weird.
The morning after, like,
it's suspicious.
Is
weird
for sure. I like Mansfield the most, though.
Yeah, Mansfield.
Yeah.
Just because of the covering of it.
Yeah, the way the MO is.
Well, there's reasons. There's also religious reasons you got to think of too, and because in a lot of faiths you cover the mirror so the soul of the dead do not get captured in the house.
That might have been an important factor too, because
it's usually a Jewish practice, but I've heard of it in other religions as well. And then also covering the head also shows a little bit of remorse. So I think that maybe the Reverend, if it was the Reverend, covered them out of respect of the dead. But Mansfield did the same thing in other situations, unless Kelly was the Reverend Kelly, because he traveled as well, unless he was the serial killer.
And not Mansfield.
And, Mansfield maybe killed one family or something, and then Kelly did it like that. Because if you think about it, there are multiple serial killers that killed with an axe. New Orleans, the Axeman in New Orleans, he killed him. Lizzie Borden, may or may not. That's our next episode, by the way. I didn't really think of that. It would be 2 axe murders in this, right after each other. But yeah. So there's other people like you said. I think we were talking about the axe murders some other time or something. Probably. And you were like, everyone had one.
Yeah.
Everyone had an axe.
Yeah.
It was like
the easiest accessible
it's
thing. Especially in back then, when it wasn't so. They'd have to go out and get firewood and stuff like that. How many fireplaces that you see nowadays that aren't actually electric?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
so axes now aren't as necessary for everyday life for the normal suburban family as it was back in those days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like it was a crime of necessity, but there's also a theory that because it was a railroad town, that it was a drifter.
Just came in
with a train, killed everyone in the house. And then, because he ate something, and cleaned up and everything.
That's weird.
Like, he was in this house after he killed somebody, because I don't know how long it takes to bludgeon someone 30 times. I mean, like, guys, do this. Go out and hit something, like hit a spoon 30 times for each victim, 8 times, right?
Yeah.
So let's do 8 times 20, because do 20 times. That's like 160 times.
Yeah, I don't know.
And like, these are killing blows. It's not like a like a tap. It's like a full swing, enough to make an indention into a wall behind you.
Yeah, the weirdest thing for me is them not waking up to any of it. Like he systematically killed one after the other, and none of them until the very last one woke up.
Yeah,
why? I don't get that. So maybe he did one quick hit.
My thing is
kill him, and then went back.
It is quiet out where they are, because they are in the Midwest, and there's probably not a lot of people. Everything took. And what bothered me is during the investigation, like the discovery of the body, 7:30. The brother arrived 8. Mm-hmm. The marshal arrived 8:30. Everything within 30 minutes of this house.
Yeah.
There's 3 blocks away from the church.
Yeah.
Like, did they live in the center of town?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm assuming there wasn't that many roads back then, but it said everything's 30 minutes away. So you think someone else would be able to hear, because it's quiet at night.
Not if they didn't make any sounds. None of them woke up. The only 5.
I'm talking about the thuds.
The thudding? No, we wouldn't be able to hear from 30 minutes away.
Yeah, but obviously Lena fought back.
Yeah. But how much, though, really?
I mean, it depends on where the axe was in relation of
Yeah.
him pulling up the skirt or the nightgown.
Yeah, the whole thing is really really weird. And the fact that they probably could have caught them, whoever did it, but if they had been a little bit more careful with how they were handling the
I think
investigation. I mean,
if it was a serial killer, he was caught for something else, and they just never pinned it on him.
they or he didn't confess or nothing like that.
Yeah, and but the Reverend did confess, even though that it was probably coerced. So I don't know. I don't know if he was the killer or not. My thing is, if he had I I just don't think that the Moors were the intended target. I think they were just in the way. I think that he wanted Lena if it was the Reverend. If it was Mansfield, he just killed to kill. I mean, serial killers don't need a reason to kill.
Yeah, but why? I don't know.
But there's no motive.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I'm
can't
saying.
see, like, it's not like
That's why they said that F.F. Jones
just.
paid.
I mean, what he'd have to be clinically insane for that to transition. Because if he just like had a crush on her or something like that, you
Mhm.
know, and
Well,
he was like, I'm trying to figure out how I'm trying to
most
put this.
okay. When people, there's two reasons why someone kills a child. Like when they want them sexually.
Yeah,
One,
it is.
I know it's disgusting. One is so that no one finds out, no witnesses,
Yeah,
and the other is an accident. They accidentally killed them.
right. But the Reverend, why would he likes her, so he's gonna. So no witnesses, basically, is what you're saying. He
Yeah,
doesn't
no
want anybody to
witnesses.
witness.
But
Okay.
why not? I know this is disgusting, but why not finish the job? You know what I mean? Like maybe
I know.
because he didn't want to do her dead.
I
This is really hard to talk about, but
Yeah.
we have to talk about it because of the case.
I don't know. I don't
There's
know
a
what,
reason. There's a
that's
reason why she
all
was
assuming, of course,
exposed.
that the Reverend is the killer.
Yeah, that is, or anything else. There was a reason why only she was exposed.
Yeah. And
Like
the
the mom wasn't.
which is why you would think that it would be the Reverend.
Yeah, because
if
he took
had
a liking
fixation
to
on
her.
Then yeah, well,
Like he
I can
played
see
with
that,
her
yeah.
hair.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I know that he was only there for a day, but like, bro,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If he's got a fixation,
like it's
a
in there.
weird kind of fixation on her or whatever.
Yeah, like he's like, I don't know. There's going to be other unsolved cases that are going to be worse than this to talk
Yeah,
about. So we do have to talk about the unfortunately bad things, and like in all of history, we have horrific things. Like I said in other podcasts, if you want to see the most horrifying things in the world, look in our history.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, but that's my theory. I think
Reverend
the
did it.
Reverend did it because he wanted Lena, and maybe
The serial killer thing doesn't fit for the Reverend. That would be
It doesn't, no.
It would be just that was just him killing them. That was
the
the end of it.
the similarities between the
So,
Mansfield,
If it was the Reverend, obviously it had nothing to do with this other killings.
unless he staged it like that to get away with it.
So you think he'd have heard about the murders previously?
yeah,
and
dude,
then
news-
was like, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to stage it to look like it's one of these other killings.
Yeah, because Mansfield
Yeah, I mean-
was killing before this,
Yeah.
so that's my thing. Or more.
Yeah.
More, they knew about more too. Like I said, there's been other axe murderers, and that's why they think that not all of the Louisiana axe murderers
Mhm.
were
One person.
were one person. They think it was maybe some of them were copycats,
Right.
which is a really big thing even nowadays.
Do you ever think that a serial killer, like, I know there's some serial killers that like to be admired, and that's the whole point, like
Mhm.
they want to get their face on the news and, out to the whole world or whatever.
Yeah, they want to be
But do you-
infamous. Yeah.
But do you ever think that they are getting mad when their copycats come up and they're like, okay, well, this person is copying my shit and he's not even doing it right, or whatever.
Actually, yes, because there was 3 serial killers working at the very same time out west, and it was they were all highway killers. Randy Kraft was one of them, and there was other 2 guys at the same time. But one of them was like, "Oh, I don't do this. I don't kill people." Like there, he was disgusted on how he was. Like, "Oh, I don't cut off his penis, or I don't cut off his genitals.
Yeah.
I just have sex with their corpses." Like he was
Like,
better
that's-
in a way
yeah,
that he's
he's
like,
a
"I just
good
have
guy."
necrophilia. Like I just kill them real quick and then have sex with their body." But
Weird.
like this guy tortures them. Like
Yeah, so
like-
he was like getting offended about the fact that
yeah, like you
they're being
compare it to him.
compared.
Yeah, like
Okay.
and then he's like, it
I was
was
just
just
curious because
Yeah,
I
and
imagine that there are several out there.
BTK killer.
Hmm.
He
Oh,
came out
was
of
obsessed
hiding
with, yeah.
because they were like, "Oh, he's dead,"
Hmm.
because he would have killed them.
He
And
loved
he,
taunting the
yeah,
police.
he taunts the
loved
police.
taunting
He
the-
loved the attention,
Yep.
and like I said, but with 1912, like there's radio
Yeah.
and there's newspapers, but like now it's like a media frenzy if something happens.
Yeah.
So I don't think maybe I don't know because I mean obviously if the person who did this got away with it, they're gonna live like we're still talking about it 110 years later.
Yeah.
Like it's not 110 years yet, but it's almost 110 years later because it won't be until June 10th.
They may very well have been caught and
Yeah.
charged with something else, and just didn't confess to it, or
Yeah,
couldn't
like I
tie
said,
him to it or whatever.
with Mansfield, the similarities are too like in your face
Yeah.
to not be him. But they apparently has an alibi, but that could have been set up by someone else,
Yeah.
or just cops make mistakes.
Yep.
And but I definitely think that it's between Mansfield and
Yeah, I don't like the last one.
yeah, I don't like Moore at all. I think it's Reverend Kelly or Mansfield, or I mean, it could have been just someone in that town that didn't like the Moors.
Why though?
I don't know. Like I said, it's 2,500. It's a railroad town. People are coming in and out all the time.
You said the first person to discover the bodies was a neighbor.
Yeah, an elderly woman.
Woman.
There's no way she killed them.
Oh, but what if she did?
What if it was his brother?
His brother? Yeah.
Yeah, he had.
I mean,
Jealousy.
Some people don't have reasons.
Yeah, jealousy, money. It could have been anything. Moore owned his hardware store, and his brother was a druggist, which I imagine would be like a pharmacist. Yeah, nowadays. But I mean, maybe, or druggist might mean he was on drugs. I mean, they had cocaine back then and whiskey and stuff. He could have just been like a fiend, and then he's like, "Well, if I kill my brother, I get."
Sense with like what you're talking about with her skirt and stuff being pushed up, and her being the only one that fought back and stuff like that.
Yeah, like I said, it's so weird because there's so many. Unless it was Kelly and Mansfield, it could have. Yeah, I think it. My thing, the more I think about it, the amount of brutality in this murder case. I understand that people go through, like serial killers go through berserker modes, and they don't get tired like normal people do. They have a little bit higher of adrenaline and everything.
Yeah.
But that is a lot.
Yeah.
160 times just swinging as hard as you can. I mean, it's no wonder he sat down and rested. He would be absolutely tired. I mean, it takes a lot. You see those guys exercise and what they sit there and like they sledgehammer a damn tire. Yeah. And they're like, like that. And like they do it 10 times and they're like breathing heavy. Mm-hmm. This dude bludgeoned each body 20 to 30 times. Yep. And got out of that house and left without anybody knowing. Neighbor didn't see anything, nothing. He was gone by 7:30. So within 7 hours, he bludgeoned people. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's ridiculous. So.
Yes. Stuff like that, it's so weird that, because if that happened today, it probably would have been solved right away.
You would think so, but there's a lot of cases that we're going to see in this Unsolved series.
I like hearing about the Unsolved back in the day, but they're a little bit easier to explain why they're unsolved than some of the ones. Like, it's a lot harder nowadays. So the Unsolved from more recent times, like the Elisa Lam thing, those I find more interesting because it's a lot harder to get around the technology that we have today than it was back then. So getting an unsolved case now,
absolutely,
I feel would be
absolutely. And I think that we're going to learn a lot through this Unsolved series about what cases were like, how is this unsolved? Like,
all right, and there's going to be, I think, because this one's a little bit harder for me, but I think there's going to be a lot of cases where we're going to be like, okay, we definitely think it's this person.
No, absolutely.
We definitely think it's that person.
Well,
to us, it's obvious.
Yeah. Well, I obviously think it's the Reverend, but that's just distrust with the whole religious thing, and we won't get into that. But also, just the way he acted towards Lena.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't know how it was back then, but don't touch a child's hair, especially if it's not yours, and especially if you're a person within power in the community, because a lot of pedophiles get into a position of power
Yeah.
to deal with a lot of kids,
Mm-hmm.
just so they can, because dude, it's
Disgusting.
mind-boggling, disgusting. But yeah, so that was the Villisca axe murders.
That was interesting. I think I'd heard about it before, but I'm not sure exactly when it was. But some of it sounded familiar, and then there was parts I hadn't heard before, so I learned some stuff today too.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a famous. Well, obviously, it's a famous case because we wouldn't be doing it. We're trying to do the most famous of Iowa, and Iowa may have some more famous cases. But I just looked. I was like, "What's the most famous case in Iowa?"
Yeah.
And that's what popped up. So Villisca axe murders. Villisca is a town of only 1,100 now.
Really? So it's even less than it was.
Yeah,
back
it's
then.
less than it was back then. So it's like 1,136
Wow.
according to the new census.
I
So
wonder if that house is haunted now.
it is.
Aha!
Yep. Yep. It's
figured.
considered haunted, and you guys can
I-
get tours of it and
I
everything.
100% believe that ghosts come back more often when it's tied to a traumatic event.
Yeah, but also if it was religious in an aspect and they covered the
Yeah.
mirrors, how did they get stuck in the house?
Because the mirrors will cover it.
Did you know? And here is a thing that you may not know. I don't know. I found it when I was looking into the mirrors theory. Did you know there's some cultures that will not look in a mirror because they say it brings death?
Hmm.
Like
No, I
looking into a mirror, staring into a mirror, like invites death.
I guess we all have our weird things about mirrors, don't we? Mirrors bring bad luck if you
Yeah.
break them.
And
mirrors.
I know
you got the Bloody
I
Mary
know
myth,
why. I looked up
the
that, by the way.
Candyman myth, you know.
I looked that up, by the way. The 7-year cycle.
Yeah.
It starts with ancient Greece,
Really.
right? They put they made bronze into the mirrors, right,
Reflective.
and stuff. Well, they you know how Greeks are.
Yeah.
They make gods, so they had two gods. And both gods only did it in a 7-year cycle. So every 7 years, you would either, if you worship this god or whatever, so gods, you would have good fortune.
Right.
Piss them off, you'll have 7 years of misfortune.
Oh, okay.
So if you
7 years of bad luck.
if you 7 years of bad luck.
Huh.
So I found that fascinating.
Yeah,
But like the culture of mirrors, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating because something so that we take granted every day.
Yeah,
Like, can you go
I
anywhere without looking into a mirror?
yeah.
You're
I barely ever pay attention
when you're driving.
Yeah.
You need mirrors.
When
When you're driving. You go into the bathroom. Every bathroom.
Yeah, but
in the
it's
world
gotta
probably
come
has a
to the point
mirror.
where you don't pay attention to it though. Like
Yeah, I know.
well,
That's why I
mean,
said you take it for
if you're
granted.
not- if you're
Like,
paying,
yeah.
obviously you do, but
But can you imagine? Just like, what if you're inviting death? One time you look in the mirror. What if you die and no one covers that mirror and then you're trapped in that house forever?
that would suck.
Yeah. So that's why I said, like, just something so small and insignificant has that
right
much
there-
meaning.
That right there bothers me. The killer, right,
Mm-hmm.
has no problem whatsoever killing these people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But he wants to make sure that he covers the mirror so that they're
That's
Why?
a speculation why he
if you-
covered the mirrors.
Here's the solving that problem. Just don't kill him in the first place, and then you wouldn't have to cover the mirrors.
There's also a theory that he covered the mirrors because he didn't want to look at himself.
Doing it,
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
Like he may have covered the mirrors first or something,
Yeah.
or after. I don't know. Like I said, it's weird. There's so many theories, and a serial killer's mind or a killer's mind is so complex, and that's the reason why we find them so fascinating. Because there's no way we can't get in their
imagine how they're
mindset.
thinking.
Yeah.
It's weird because unless you're like that, you can't fathom it. I mean, I can't get my head around what would cause somebody to kill somebody else
Yeah.
or anything like that.
So I hope you guys like that. That was our Unsolved series. We're definitely going to continue it. It probably won't be this season. We did this episode because Chupacabra was supposed to be this episode, but we put that with
Mashed it
Skinwalkers.
together.
Yeah, we mashed it with Skinwalkers because they just was there. To me, they were similar, and with cryptids and stuff. So thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what your theories are. Who do you think killed her
Yeah.
or killed them? I was like her because I'm 100% sure Lena's the target. But who killed these 8 people? Like, just went in and just annihilated a whole family. Horrible person. Let us know if you have theories that we didn't cover. Like, maybe I missed a suspect. I mean, there was more suspects, but I wanted to do the most possible.
Right.
So just let us know. Follow us in that link below in the description, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.